I'm sticking with this nostalgic theme because, well, guess what? It's the off season, and I like talking about some of the, I guess, issues or situations of yesteryear. Because of course, I've been a fan since 1981, and I think it's important to go back and revisit and just ask a few questions about situations. And this is what we're going to do in this podcast today. And welcome back to this podcast. This is the Washington Commanders podcast called the Washington Football Maniacs. Almost messed up that intro. Oh man. Well, this channel, of course, is dedicated to the Commanders, news and commentary. I'm your host here, Greg Sykes. And if you're down with that, please let's subscribe. Let's get going with subscribing to this podcast. And also, when you do, make sure you hit that notification bell on YouTube so you won't miss any of the video releases. You can also check us out. We'll be posting these podcasts in audio format, so you don't have to see my ugly mug. Okay, that wasn't that funny, right? Anyway, Podbean. We're posting on Podbean. We will be branching out to all of the other podcast platforms, so be looking out for that. We want to make this as convenient as possible. The other thing we want to make as convenient as possible is saving you a lot of money on your cell phone bill, your wireless. And our partners here at Mint Mobile want to do that for you. Have you ever thought, why is my wireless bill so expensive? What are you paying all of that money for? Speed, coverage, data, access to 5G, unlimited talk and text? What about mobile hotspots? Well, with my partners at Mint Mobile, they offer all of those features for as low as $15 a month, and it is very easy to get started with Mint Mobile. How does it work? Well, Mint Mobile works with your digital eSIMs card that most phones nowadays come with. You can be up and running in less than 15 minutes. And if you don't have a digital eSIMs card in your phone, my partners at Mint Mobile will send you a physical SIM for free. That's right, for free. Big Wireless wants you to think that it's too difficult to switch, but Mint Mobile makes it super easy, and their service is outstanding. I have been testing Mint Mobile for the last couple of months, and I have not seen any drops in calls, and performance and speed has been outstanding. I can watch YouTube in 4K, movies in 4K. I can even play online video games without any buffering whatsoever. Why pay all of that money for access to premium services when you can get all of those services with Mint Mobile for a fraction of the cost? Switch to Mint Mobile today. Go to trymintmobile.com/maniacs and get started on your savings. The link will be in the description of this video. Let's get to it. Speaking of getting to it, what was that? What was I saying? Oh, that's right. Let me take you back to the mid 2000s. It was 2004 during the off season when we learned that Dan Snyder had pulled off the impossible and had brought Mr. Joseph Jackson Gibbs back to be the head coach of the Washington Redskins. And I remember reading the article, and I was so amazed. Like, wow, okay. Dan Snyder started off his ownership on the wrong foot, and he finally hit it right. Like, what better way to get back into good standings with your fans than to bring back the legend himself? And I was so excited. I remember posting on, Redskins forum boards back in the day and telling the younger guys, like, man, you're going to be in for a treat. Joe Gibbs he's got that knack. Like, you just want to run through buildings for this man. Like, he was so well respected. And the first time that I heard people, some fans speak poorly of him, I was about ready to go through my computer monitor and like wring their necks, because I just, Joe Gibbs honestly was one of the reasons why I became a Redskins fan back in the early days. And so when he came back, I was like, this is exciting. And it's like he brought most of the old gang back, except for Pettibon. Pettibon didn't come back. So we brought in Greg Williams, which was fantastic for our defense anyway. And he really built a pretty decent coaching staff. Joe Bugle came back. God rest his soul. I think Hannafan. Just a lot of the old-time coaches were back. Of course, that first season, not much going on. Probably one of the worst seasons Gibbs ever had as a Redskins head coach. But the second season in 2005, things really, heated up. He was, able to get Clinton Portis, or did Clinton Portis come in 2004? I think it was the 2005 season that we brought in Clinton Portis, and of course, 10-6 season, won the division. I believe, didn't we? I think we won the division, went to the playoffs, actually won a playoff game. So, just very, just felt like, okay, Gibbs is back. He's in control. We, as fans, are going to get to witness a second coming of the glory years. Of course, it never really mounted up to that. A down season in 2007, and then another better season in 2007, or did I say 2006? Down season in 2006, and then a better season in 2007. Made the playoffs then. So it was like the first coach since himself to take the team to the playoffs twice. And it was just really thinking of if he can just stick around and continue to build this team, he's going to build back to something respectful. Hopefully he gets an extension. He'll stay through at least 2010. But then, of course, tragedy struck in that 2007 year, and Sean Taylor passed away. And I think that really affected Joe Gibbs. Of course, since then, he's had 2 sons to pass away. His wife, has been in bad health. Just a lot of tragedy in the Gibbs family itself. But even back then, with Taylor and how much Sean Taylor meant to Joe Gibbs, I think that was so much on Gibbs. He retired the first time because he was tired. He became diabetic. He was in bad health. He needed to spend more time with his family. And he just got to a point where it was too much at that point. And I think things were going okay. They were much harder than probably what he imagined it would be. But then when that struck, I think that was just the nail in the coffin. Probably a bad choice of words in that instance, but it was the truth. But if Sean Taylor, if he didn't have that tragic ending to his life, would Joe Gibbs have stuck around? I think he would have. I think he would have stuck around because, of course, he got him to the playoffs that year, in that very tragic year. They kind of backed into the playoffs, but they got in. Um, I think he would have stuck around because I think number one, they probably would have had a better season that year because Sean Taylor was a game changer, man. He was. He was. He would. Now that was a generational player. If you're looking for a definition of generational player, Sean Taylor's face should be in the definition because he was. I'd never seen a safety. And I watched guys like, Ronnie Lott, some really big time safeties. I'd never seen a safety like this before. And he was special. And honestly, I think that if that tragedy had not happened, I think Joe Gibbs would have coached to maybe at least 2010, maybe before finally hanging it up for good. And who knows how much better that this team would have been in. Maybe he would have eventually gotten everything together. Maybe Jason Campbell would have had a better career if Gibbs would have stuck. Now, I'm not going to blame Gibbs for Jason Campbell's overall career, but I'm just saying a lot of what ifs because remember, back in Gibbs' first tenure, we didn't exactly have the best quarterbacks in the league. Doug Williams won the Super Bowl. Not honestly, Doug Williams was at the tail end of his career. Even Jay Schrader for a little bit. I mean, he got to the NFC Championship game in '86, but I mean, he played really well for a short time he was in there. And of course, Mark Rippon, who he had probably one of the greatest seasons a quarterback could ever have in the NFL. In 1991, finished it off with a Super Bowl victory and an MVP in the Super Bowl. But he was never what I consider franchise quarterback. The last one, I honestly would say Joe Theismann was your franchise quarterback, the last one we've ever had. So Joe Gibbs knew how to take guys who were either, heading toward the tail end of their career or, just guys who normally would be bench players, and then guys who, are later round draft picks and turn them into champions. And he did that a lot. And I think that maybe he could have done that with Jason Campbell. But I think it really all hinged. Taylor was the one who kept that team together. Maybe not literally, but when he died, then I think a lot of the team died with him. And I think a lot of, everything that Gibbs had to deal with. I think even through all of that, Gibbs still showed that he was a tremendous leader. And that's one thing I've always loved about Joe Gibbs. Tremendous leader. Not just as a coach or, as a, owner of a NASCAR team, but as a person. He's one of those guys who you want to meet because, he oozes leadership. He just has that, that thing about him. He's definitely the definition of a leader. And so I really think that Gibbs would have had a longer stay because that Dan Snyder would have signed a 10-year extension for Joe Gibbs if Joe Gibbs was willing to stay that long. I mean, he loved him. No matter, I mean, Gibbs probably could have been 4-12 for the next several seasons, and he would have still kept him because that was the one man that Dan Snyder truly respected, and so what would have been? Would we have gotten another Super Bowl with Joe Gibbs? I know that there's a lot to talk about as far as, Well, his offense was way outdated. He had to bring in Al Saunders to help throw in some new wrinkles because he realized he needed help on offense. But he did that. Like, he realized I need something more on my coaching staff. The old ways aren't always the best anymore. And so he finds that's the thing with Gibbs. And he's always said, you're as strong as your coaching staff, as your support on your team, whether it's NASCAR or the NFL. And so he would have found the right guys. He would have found the right guys on the coaching staff, the players, whatever it would have taken to get the team back to the Super Bowl. I just think that things just kind of prematurely ended, unfortunately, because of the tragedy. But it would have been so nice. It would have been so nice if he could have stayed on, gotten one championship, just as a like a Rocky Balboa type thing. It's like, still has it in here, needs to let it out, needs to get into the ring and let it out. And I just wonder to this day, if I could ever have the chance to sit down and talk with him, and if he would allow me to be that personable, I would ask, did that tragedy cut your tenure short in Washington, or did you just feel that regardless, it was probably the best time to go? We can all sit here and say, for our matter of fact, oh yeah, no, he was going regardless. We don't know that. So anyway, folks, this was the special podcast that I wanted to do. Hope you enjoyed it. I know it ran a little bit longer than expected, but hopefully maybe at least covers your drive to work if you're listening to the podcast audio version of this. And if you're watching YouTube in your car, then I hope you don't wreck. Okay. Dad jokes. All right. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, if you want to support the channel, subscribe, and visit our partners, Mint Mobile, if I can get it out. And with that said, I will see you in the next one. Take care.